Think of it the last time you were in a conversation, a meeting, a relationship moment, family gathering, any space, and you had something to really say, something true, important, and you felt it rising up inside you, and then you just kind of swallowed it all. Maybe you told yourself it was not the right time. Maybe you convinced yourself it was not that important. You just did not want to deal with the reaction. So you stayed quiet, kept the peace, let the moment pass. And then later, maybe that night, maybe several days later, you were still thinking about what you did not say, still replaying it, still carrying it. That is the moment of choosing your battles. That is a pattern. And if you haven't happened to have this happen long enough, it has a name. It's called chronic self-silencing. And today we're going to talk about what it really is, where it comes from, and what it has been quietly doing to you. So welcome back to the Empowerment Click. I'm the King of Tan, empowerment coach, clinician, and your people social worker. We are deep in the wound series right now. And if you have been following along, you already know that this series is about naming the invisible patterns and live underneath the surface of all our lives. But I'm talking about women, the ones that develop so gradually and so quietly that by the time we notice them, they feel this was who we're supposed to be. Today's pattern is one of the most quietly devastating ones I know because it does not just affect what you say, it affects who you become over time when you constantly choose silence over truth. We're talking about chronic self silencing today. And I want to start by making a distinction that I think is really important. There's a difference between choosing not to speak in particular moments because the timing is generally not right and habitually suppressing your voice, needs, opinions, truth across the board because some parts of you have learned that speaking up is generally not safe, not worth it, or simply not something you are allowed to do. The first is wisdom. The second is wound. And what I see in women far too often is the second being disguised as the first. So self-silence is ongoing pattern of like holding back your authentic voice, your real thoughts, genuine feelings, your actual needs, honest your actions in order to like manage other people's comfort and avoid conflict, maintaining relationships, or simply survive in places where your full truth has not historically been welcomed. It is like when women who have always had something to say but rarely say it, when you possess everything internally but share very little externally. Who knows exactly what you need but cannot bring it back to herself and ask for it. You know, the woman who has opinions about everything but learns to keep them carefully contained because somewhere along the way she learned that her voice created problems more than it created connections. And here is the self-worth layer that makes it so important to understand. When women chronically silence themselves, the message she's sending to her own psyche over and over and over again is that what she thinks does not matter enough to be said, that's what she feels not important enough to be expressed. So the truth is less valuable than someone else's comfort. And the more she sends the message, the more she begins to believe it until eventually she is not just silencing herself in front of others. She's silencing herself, you got it, from herself. She stopped fully forming her own thoughts because she has already learned she will not say them anyway. She stopped trusting her own perceptions because she has spent so much time overriding them. She starts to feel a vague but persistent disconnection from herself that she cannot quite explain. And that disconnection is the direct result of years of telling her inner voice to be quiet. Let me tell you where this starts, because chronic self-silencing almost never begins in childhood. It doesn't begin in adulthood, but it begins in childhood. In environments and relationships where young girls first learn what happened when she spoke up or spoke the truth. Maybe she was told too loud when she expressed her strong opinion. Maybe she was punished for speaking up. Maybe she watched what happened to the women around her when they dared to say what they really thought. And she made a quiet decision. I'm not doing that. Her film was constantly minimized or dismissed so many times that she stopped bothering to share them. Maybe she grew up in a home where emotional atmosphere was fragile and she learned to read the room and stay quiet to keep the peace. However, how it started, the lesson was the same. The voice is the problem. Your truth is inconvenient and silence is way safer. And so she kept quiet, stayed quiet, And she got so good at being quiet that people started to describe her as easygoing, as low maintenance, as someone who never causes drama. And she accepted those descriptions as compliment because she did not have the language yet to understand that what they were actually describing was her disappearance. Here is what people do not always realize. Things you do not say do not just disappear. They accumulate. Every swallow and shallow truth, every unexpressed feeling, every need you did not voice, every opinion you kept to yourself, they built up inside you like pressure in a sealed container. And that pressure has to go somewhere. It goes into resentment that feels but cannot be explained. It goes into a low grade anger that surfaces in ways that seem disappropriate to the moment because it's carrying the weight of everything that comes before it. It goes into creeping like sadness that has no clear surface. It goes into a body that tenses up and braces for tired for holding for so much long into relationships that feel increasingly hollow because real intimacy requires real expression. And you have not fully expressed yourself in years. I think about a woman who came to me who described herself as someone who did not like conflict. She said, almost proudly, I am not a confrontational person. I just keep it moving. On the surface, that sounded like maturity. But as we got deeper, I realized that she was describing what was not perfect for peace. It was a terror of conflict that had been with her since childhood. She had grown up in a home where conflict meant danger, where raised voices meant something bad was coming. And so she had to learn to manage that terror by eliminating any possibility of conflict entirely, which meant eliminating her voice entirely, which meant that by the time she came to see me, she had been in a relationship for years where she had never once told her partner what she actually needed, had never once expressed genuine disagreement, never once said that it's not okay with me. And she was deeply, profoundly lonely inside that relationship. Not because her partner was terrible, but because her partner had never actually met her, the real her, and silent the whole time. This is what chronic silencing does to intimacy. You cannot be truly known by someone you have never truly known or shown to yourself. And you cannot feel genuinely connected to a relationship where authentic voices is constantly absent. The loneliness that come from being surrounded by people who only know your curated and it's silent virgin is the one particular and painful kind of loneliness there is. Because from the outside, everyone looks fine, but on the inside, you're like nobody in your life actually holding the real you because you have never handled that for them. And do you even know who the real you is? So what does it look like to begin reclaiming your voice? Because this is always where we have to begin. Not just naming the wound, but pointing towards the healing. It starts with recognizing that your voice is not a weapon. It is not something that damages people when you use it. It is not inherently too much or too loud or too threatening. Those are stories that were told to you by people or environments that benefit from your silence. And they are not true. Your voice is yours. It's one of the most fundamental expressions of your humanity, and it deserves to be used. It continues with starting small and building trust with yourself. You do not have to begin to have the hardest conversation with the most difficult person in the world. Start with lower stake moments. Start a genuine opinion about something small. Express your preference instead of saying whatever you want. Tell someone honestly how you're doing instead of default into time. Every small act of authentic expression is a deposit into your own sense of self. It's evidence that you can speak and survive it, that your voice does not destroy those things, that you are allowed to be heard. And it requires you to grieve the time you spent silent, because then when you start to find your voice again, you will likely feel as grief all the moments you did not speak up, all the things you wish you had said, all the relationships you wish you showed up as a fraction of yourself. That grief is real and it deserves space, but do not let it keep you silent. You know, let it fuel you instead. Let it be the reason you choose differently from here. Your voice is not too much. It never was. The space you hold, was simply too small to hold you. And you are done making yourself fit into spaces that were never built for you. If this video opens something up, and you're ready to start doing the real work of reconnecting with your voice and your truth, free attitude detox guides in the description is a starting point for women who are ready to stop swallowing their truth and start living from it. Grab it. It's free. It's real. It was made for exactly this moment. And if you have not subscribed yet, please do that now because the series is going places that you do not want to miss a single conversation. I am the Kenny Tam, and this is a vibe check.